So sometimes I talk too much, sometimes I talk too fast, sometimes I say things in a way that people don't understand. And so, because I think this message is so important, I'm going to try to say it different ways until I feel like everyone can understand it. So, what you got to understand is that MULN Automotive in 2022 started with 500 million shares. From the end of February all the way to the end of July, they sold retail all 500 million shares. Halfway through, they announced a vote with the record date where they still owned 51% of the shares and voted for an extra 1.25 billion shares. So now there's 1.75 billion possible shares. Now, what's interesting is it says that we have a SEC filing that says as of September 22nd, there was 643 million shares. And then the SEC filing we got today that says as of September 30th, 2022, that the outstanding shares plus time multiplied by the reverse splits equals 830 million. So basically, it shows that retail bought 200 million shares in that week-long period of September. So that's pretty cool. But outside of that, what happens? So we know that all the way until May 2023, we get the highest outstanding share announcement of 3.7 billion shares right as they reverse split 25-1, which changes that to 150 million shares. And so we know that there's 150 million shares. We know that they have a 5 billion shares total. So that means that there's 1.3 billion left that they can dilute, and versus our 150 million we currently own, which used to be the 3.7 billion. Now, we know that from May 23rd to June 22nd, they announce, as of June 22nd, that there are 650 million shares. So June 22nd is 650, and we know that we had 150, so that means 500 million shares have been diluted. So now they have 800 million shares left. Well, between June 22nd and between June 30th, we know that because they announced in today's filing that there was 86 million shares, if you multiply that by the reverse split, that would suggest that before the reverse split, and it was on June 30th, so it wasn't just before the reverse split, because the reverse split just happened. But all the volume after June 30th, we still don't know about how much retail is bought, which was well before, almost 90% of that volume is before the reverse split, which typically means we bought a lot more shares. And so, especially if you look at the volatility in between those periods. And so if all of that is true, then we are at the 650 million plus the additional 125 million. And so that brings their 800 million down to 675 million shares possible. And then the last question is we know we've diluted something like 10 billion, or there's been 10 billion shares traded. And like we could either be at 4%, which means we've done 400 million shares. And so what that would mean is that before the reverse split, so we have the 86 million at June 30th times the 9 reverse split plus the 4% of the 10 billion is 400 million. Divide this by 9. Well, so that's the 1.17 billion after the 3.7 billion original. So what is 3.7 on top of that would be, well, let's just do it. Okay, so 3.7 billion on top of that would be 4.874 billion shares. And I think we've done more than 10 billion shares traded. And if you look at my last video, you'll see that the average dilution percent from June 22nd to June 30th, 2023 was probably closer to 6 to 7% than it was 4%. So if it's only at 4%, then they still have 156 million shares left. But if we divide this by 9 and divide that by 25, oops, I multiplied that. Hold on. So we know that we have, let's say, the 1.2 billion shares, and we divide that by the 9. So we're assuming we have 133 million shares, roughly, at the low end, up to 200 million shares at the high end, and they have less than 150 million shares. Like, that is what the math says right now. I really want people to be asking questions if they don't understand what I'm saying right now. This is super important. This is the most important message that needs to be spread. This is what makes rich people start to invest, because they know that the clock is ticking. Tick tock, motherfuckers. About to get shot.